Preparing to ditch Seattle, Amazon is getting ready to move thousands of its employees from its main headquarters to new offices in nearby Bellevue, Washington, following a dust-up over a new tax on big business.
The last couple of months, we've taken a look at what's happened since new payroll taxes were put in place 5 years ago in Seattle. What have the results been? And the findings aren't great for our city. We've lost 30,000 jobs. We're going in the wrong direction, and we thought it was appropriate to take a look back at what these taxes have meant for job growth in Seattle.
The move comes as Amazon continues to expand outside Seattle amid growing tensions with the city. The city council recently passed the payroll tax on big businesses, which Amazon fought fiercely against. UW Foster School of Business professor Jeff Schulman says Amazon is sending a message.
So it's showing that Seattle is becoming less and less important to Amazon's long-term plan.
The expansion puts Bellevue's workforce on par with Amazon's HQ in Virginia.
Constitution. It would drive away businesses and jobs and opens the door for an income tax on all Washingtonians.
I think the claims that millionaires are going to leave our state are like super overblown, and if the ones that leave, like, bye. So
how you cannot be the mayor and be that cavalier about what will be an economic catastrophe for your city and the state.
So right now, the escape valve is Bellevue. 15 minutes across a bridge, same talent pool, no JumpStart tax. Now, a statewide version of that JumpStart tax was introduced in Olympia this session. It died without a vote, but the people who wrote it are already planning to bring it back next session. If it passes, the escape valve isn't Bellevue anymore. It's tech.
Oh, this is a tasty one. This is We Told You So podcast episode. 5 years in, new analysis links Seattle's JumpStart tax. That's the whole tax Amazon. Hashtag tax Amazon. Shama Sawant started in Seattle. Tax to downtown Seattle's decline. We got a link, ladies and gentlemen. We got a link. Let's get into it. Here we go. I mean, who saw this coming? We're reading from Todd Bishop of the Geek Wire. Who saw this one coming? Let's see. You do a big tax on your big businesses, and at the same time, those big businesses go, we should do business elsewhere. What else is nearby? Well, Bellevue's like less than a dozen miles that away. Got to go across a couple of bridges. Let's go there. And that's what they've done. And now there's a new study that goes, yeah, this is what's happening. Let's read it. Let's take a peek. This is some good stuff. A new Downtown Seattle Association report asserts that Seattle's signature tax on big employers is backfire. Uh-oh. 5 years after it went into effect, holding up nearby Bellevue as an example of the jobs and prosperity the city has missed out on in the process. I babble about, Bellevue versus Seattle all the time. And it's because it is a direct, you got one that's wildly out of control, right? Wildly out of control. And then you got another one that is run by Democrats, but they're moderate Democrats. They're pro-business. Used to be a lot more Republicans, but you know what? Most of the Republicans have left Washington State in general. Bellevue, you can go to downtown Bellevue Park, and it is clean. You don't have homeless just posted up in tents. You go anywhere in Seattle right now, and it is a joke. My son Karen asked me, hey, Dad, you want to go on a big hike for Father's Day? We used to do that. We had some pretty epic hikes. And I said, we'll figure it out. And then he sent me the fact that the McDonald's on Pike and Pine and 3rd on the Blade, it's the McDonald's, most dangerous McDonald's in North America. I don't care. It's beyond Watts. It is beyond anything you find in any of the nastiest, gnarly, in the Tenderloin. You're not. It's beyond that. The violence is known. Amazon won't renew leases near that area, and it's just off the charts, terrible. To the point where they said we're only going to have this little opening to the outside, and we're going to serve to-go food that way. We're not going to allow indoor dining. Well, the indoor dining has opened up. So Karen and I are going to go and eat there for, it might be a Diet Coke, right? We're going to go and eat there for Father's Day because you know what? YOLO. I mean, what'd you guys do for Father's Day? We ate at the Blade, McDonald's. It's a nasty, nasty scene there. And you know what? Leadership in Seattle just says, it's okay. It's all right. Open air drug use. I got yelled at the last time I was there with Kieran by a black dude who called me the N-word repeatedly. I just wanted to say, hey, I don't know if you're colorblind, but I'm white. I'm white. I mean, you keep accusing me of something where clearly I think you're misidentifying the situation. He was upset that I was filming him coming up on that McDonald's. The report released Monday afternoon finds that downtown Seattle has lost about 30,000 jobs since 2020. Oh, that is rich. And that the taxable value of its office buildings has fallen 48%. Now, how's Bellevue doing with that? Bellevue doesn't have a comparable tax, doesn't have that at all. Added jobs and saw commercial values rise by 7%. One of our high rises just went for $650 million. That's because it's 100% occupied by Amazon. Amazon. The irony is just, it's so rich. It's so deep. JumpStart passed in 2020. Go comrades. Well done. Well done, socialists. Well done, dirty, stinky commies. You did it. And in effect, since 2021, taxes the payrolls of Seattle's largest employers, including Amazon and other big tech companies. It's projected to raise about $388 million this year. You know where most of that money goes? To the general fund to prop it up. Because Seattle is bankrupt. Because we got a spending problem, just like on the state problem. Big, huge spending problem. Can't reel it in. Can't dial it down. Just got to double down on ridiculous expenditures after ridiculous expenditures. And more taxes, right? Because now you're forced to create more taxes. Because where else are you going to come up with the money? The businesses are leaving. Down from earlier forecasts, due in part to the loss of high-paying jobs. It's projected to raise $388 million, and that is down. It is, to a large extent, a tax on big tech. That's exactly what it is, because that's the employers that we have in downtown Seattle. You've got Amazon. You know, you had Starbucks. Until they, we're kind of looking at investing a little bit more in Nashville. 100 million, 2,000 jobs. And Howard Schultz is basically saying business in Seattle, business in Washington State is inhospitable. About 70% of the JumpStart revenue comes from just 10 companies, most in the technology sector. It's from the city budget's office. Reflection of how Seattle's economy leans on a handful of large tech employers. And they've basically said, en masse, let's go to Bellevue. Let's go to Bellevue, boys and girls. That's what we're doing. It's cleaner there. It's nicer. Bellevue Square. You've got every conceivable shopping option under the sun. Don't have rampant shootings. Don't have whacked out nut job homeless people running around stabbing each other with swords. None of that mayhem. You just don't have it in Bellevue. Got an OnlyFans house. Yeah. Had an OnlyFans house. But hey, you know what? We can't let Seattle steal all the crime. We got men getting raped in the bushes over by the homeless places in Bellevue and South Bellevue. I mean, that's, got to spread the love around a little bit. Yeah, pun intended. So these were a set of taxes that may have provided some short-term gain to the city coffers, but are inflicting long-term pain. Uh-oh. DSA President CEO John Scholl said, that guy has been at the forefront of pushing Seattle and has done an incredible job just keeping it afloat from the standpoint of there are businesses still left there in the Downtown Seattle Association. It's that entity that keeps things going. What an incredible uphill battle that guy has fought. And he's still there and he's still going. And, somebody's got to do it. Somebody's got to do the Lord's work. I cannot imagine, trying to stay positive about Seattle's outlook with all this stuff going on. And he's been dead on right about things. He's been dead on right about a lot of stuff. We predicted that at the time, and were sort of dismissed and ignored. So talking about short-term gain to the city's coffers, long-term pain, and now you're experiencing the long-term pain. Oh, yeah, businesses left. Yeah, weird. Amazon has made a full court press to go to Bellevue, and now I wouldn't blame them for not going to Bellevue. I wouldn't blame them for going out of state because Washington is no longer viable. Seattle Mayor Katie Wilson, in a statement Monday evening, credited JumpStart with helping the city recover from the pandemic and cautioned against blaming downtown's challenges on any single cause. Okay, that's fair. That's fair. But you had all kinds of federal money coming in after the pandemic, all kinds of money. In fact, you spent all kinds of money on nonsense and ridiculous stuff. And now you don't have that money coming in and you're still spending it like there's no tomorrow. The tax has raised far more than originally projected over the past several years, she said, and let the city avoid deep budget cuts that we're having now and that would have dragged on the local economy. If you can't live within your means, it's going to be a drag on the local economy at some point. It's a matter of whether it's today, moment of reckoning, or you kick the can down the road. We'll just deal with it tomorrow. Right now, that's what Seattle's doing because Seattle is effectively insolvent and will become much more so over time. Because you got businesses leaving, you've got millionaires leaving, you've got people saying, Seattle isn't what it used to be. It's a high tax environment. We don't want to really be here. We're going elsewhere. And you can't really blame them when you've literally got the mayor of Seattle, Wilson, saying, I won't purchase Starbucks and you shouldn't either. So we should be careful not to oversimplify the challenges facing downtown in our regional economy, Wilson said. Yeah, but it's pretty easy to when you have a knucklehead tax like that and you can do a paired sale analysis, appraisal term, between Bellevue, no tax, and they've increased jobs and their property values have increased. Weird. And we're not insolvent? Strange. Wilson says blaming chaotic and counterproductive national economic policies. No, the Trump administration, the feds are just cutting out nonsense. And guess what? You got a lot of nonsense in big blue cities, in big blue counties, in big blue states. And that's what you're worked up about because your funding sources are drying up. The feds just cut out however many millions of dollars from Los Angeles Homeless Authority because they've said, you guys are spending money on just nonsense. And homelessness just continues to explode. How about the feds cutting back $4 billion from the Lightspeed Rail in California that they're hoping it goes from Merced to Bakersfield. That's their best hope. No longer LA to San Fran. No, Merced to Bakersfield. Like, what? Who? Is that a high travel corridor? Is my California geography just so bad? No, that's just not a thing. It's not a thing. So we got chaotic and counterproductive national economic policies. No. They're good policies. They're just cutting out stuff from Democrats that they're absolutely spending money on that is completely unnecessary. For higher costs and interest rates that have slowed investment across the city. Higher costs are because of inflation that was running rampant during the Biden administration, right? Just absolutely to the moon, 9%. 9%. When Biden took office, inflation was what, 1.4%? Went up to 9 under Biden. So you got higher costs? Agreed, Katie Wilson. But because of your guy, right? Your numbnut. And interest rates that have slowed investment across the city. July of 2022 is when interest rates started to jump up because of inflation. 2022. Who was in office there? Anyone? Yep. Wilson also cited the pandemic, the rise of remote work, and broader shifts in the tech sector as forces that have affected cities well beyond Seattle. You know what? This is news for reasonable people. And let's take a look at that, because this is not news for retarded people. Citing the pandemic. The rise of remote work. But Bellevue is only a handful of miles away, and you can't really make that argument as much. Now, Bellevue has a relatively high vacancy factor in downtown. But then you've also got buildings that are 100% filled, and they're selling for $650 million. So you can say that the city's well beyond Seattle. Yes. And you know what? Typically, they are run by Democrats. That's the common thing. So you can slough it off onto other cities, but look at those cities. Who are they run by? Do a dive on that. Yeah, interesting. City's recovery, she said, has remained resilient and competitive. Okay, even as her administration works to diversify the economy for the future. And by diversify the economy, do you mean drive business out? Is that what diversification looks like now? I'm asking for a friend. Anyway, okay. Amazon had started to expand in Bellevue prior to the JumpStart tax. Following a short-lived 2018 head tax, JumpStart precursor, that was the Shamasawant, that the council at the time passed and quickly repealed. Company has since built its Bellevue workforce to about 15,000 people. That's weird. Bellevue's got 15,000 employees, and Seattle's, shifted about that many to Bellevue. Weird. Beyond me, clearly, part of what's now called its broader Puget Sound regional headquarters, Bellevue. JumpStart was an early example of a wave of new taxes, prompted business and tech leaders to warn of increasingly anti-business climate. And then this spring, we had a 9.9% tax on income above $1 million. All right. So on the state level, now Washington's no longer going to be competitive. Is that going to work out for Bellevue? People have been asking me, hey, when do you think the commercial real estate in Bellevue will tank? And I'm kind of like, well, you'd have to have some massive impacts on Bellevue from state policy to really put a dent in what Bellevue has moving forward. But over time, I think that does happen, because we don't have a revenue problem in Washington state. You got plenty of revenue. You've just got leadership that can't stop spending. So at some point in time, there's going to be taxation at the state level that's going to override Bellevue's ability to be competitive. I think that does happen. There's no way it can't. Because, you can hide somewhat. But when you've got statewide policy, can't run from that, because Bellevue, it's in Washington. The DSA is not calling for outright repeal of the Seattle tax. Well, yeah, okay, yeah. Tax was created to fund affordable housing, small business support. Isn't that ironic? Tax big business to support small business. This is what happens when you live in a city that is run by liptards. They put this kind of stuff in place. A few years later, you've got the absolute textbook definition for do this, don't do that. And they can't really work it out. Well, it's a problem of national politics. We got climate programs, equitable development. So this tax, equitable development, what is that even? Don't care. It's a bunch of nonsense, right? Nonsense. With the largest share, 62% going to housing. You know what? Take that money, don't put it in housing. You know what happens? Yeah, people go away. Weird. Because all of this propping up low-income housing, you can't build enough of it to actually make a difference. We're an expensive area. You're just not going to be able to fill those needs. You've got these delusional people who are thinking, yeah, but I want to pour Starbucks coffee for a living and be able to live in one of the most expensive cities in the world. But amid recurring budget shortfalls, the city has tapped JumpStart. Get this, 47% of the tax's revenue goes to general government operations. 47% of it, half of it, is meant to go to small business support, affordable housing, climate programs. Get rid of climate programs. They don't work. They don't have any impact on the climate. They're just a cluster F for Democrats to basically throw out there and go, look at us. Look at us. We're so clean. No. Meanwhile, the batteries in their Teslas are just blowing up landfills. Oh, no, they recycle those, Sean. Like the plastics in California? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Then we get into challenge. The Downtown Seattle Association may have a challenge in providing direct causal link between the tax and trends in downtown Seattle. Because you got San Francisco, you got Portland, and you got Chicago. I've seen office values fall and vacancies climb since the pandemic, with no comparable tax due to remote work, tech sector layoff, and AI-driven cuts. Let's look at those. San Francisco is ramping back up with AI, right? Period. San Francisco was the most vulnerable because it had the most tech workers who could all say, we're going to go work remotely. And they did. So their downtown absolutely shellacked. You also had street conditions in San Francisco, similar to Seattle. Bellevue doesn't have that, right? You got Portland. We don't even need to talk about Portland. Portland's such a dumpster fire. Comparing it to anything about anything, no, right? Terrible street conditions, homelessness, can't work that out. Insolvent, already super high taxes without a jumpstart tax, right? So you're already there with Portland. So Portland's a pretty good indicator of here's what happens when you don't have a pro-business environment. And Chicago. Well, Chicago, how many podcasts have we done on Chicago? What happened with Chicago is their downtown core absolutely fell on its face. And the assessor basically said, well, we got to pay the taxes. Somebody's got to pay the taxes. So we're just going to jack up all the residential taxes. And these folks will just have to pay double their taxes. And that's what happened. So again, leadership. So what kind of leadership do you have in San Francisco? Do you have a lot of Republicans? Oh, you don't? Okay, yeah. Portland, a lot of Republicans in Portland, pretty red. Portland, pretty red? No? All right. Chicago, that's got to be Republican-led, doesn't it? Oh, let's go Brandon Johnson? No? Okay. We think it's a pretty good control group over there, he said, John Scholes, DSA, attributing the divergence to Seattle's higher cost of doing business and an unwelcoming tone and tenor. Absolutely. Absolutely. In her statement, Wilson said Seattle remains one of the fastest growing big cities in the country. You know what? Population-wise, but that's because you're offsetting people leaving jobs to go elsewhere, like Tennessee, like Nashville, and you're bringing in Somali fraudsters. You're bringing in criminal illegals because we're a sanctuary city in a sanctuary state. So you might have population growth, not the kind of population growth that's going to pay your taxes. So we're going to go with that. Out of the city needs to do more to push against the global and national headwinds. Well, what headwinds are those? Because Bellevue is facing the same. Property values up. More jobs added. No real homelessness. Didn't defund the police. None of that. Just nonsense. Weird. Build a city with more businesses opening here, thriving here, and providing jobs here. You mean like it used to be before you got run into the ground by a bunch of progressives? You mean like that? So you think that Seattle can make a turnaround with a socialist in control? Because socialism has never worked. Ever, ever, ever. But hey, let's go ahead and try it again. Key to improving its economic climate, she said, is addressing homelessness. But you've been saying this for how long? Improving public safety? Well, you had that whole defund the police thing, right? And you hate cops. So how are you going to improve public safety? You're not. Making Seattle a better, what does that mean? More affordable place to live and work. Well, it's based on lefty policies that have made it so expensive, hasn't it? So you're going to unwind your own silly policies, like housing first? You're going to shit can that? I don't see you doing that. So you're not going to really address homelessness. You're not going to improve public safety. You're not going to make Seattle a better, more affordable place to live and work. So what are you going to do? Well, you're going to keep driving it into the ground. I mean, that's what you've been doing, and that's what you will continue to do, because Democrat policy, that is what happens by and large, especially when you've got a bunch of progressives. And the reason I say that is we have Democrats running Bellevue here, but they're pro-business and they're moderate. You know what I mean? There are other cities out there that have moderate leadership that are not, far right, and they can do well. They can do okay. But it's all based on policy. And you can't have these harebrained communist policies in a capitalist-driven society and then wonder, why isn't this working out? I don't get it. Oh, I get it. It's Trump's fault. Trump derangement syndrome. That whole thing to me is just, if you're going to blame something, you got to blame yourself, because this is policy driven. Washington State has had 4 decades supermajority rule by Democrats. And that's what the left cannot focus on. Because if they did, they'd have to say, you know what? We've only got ourselves to blame. And that never happens. We've only got ourselves to blame. Never, ever, ever happens. Blame them, blame them, blame them, blame them. And I'll podcast it for you right here on News for Reasonable People. Thanks for joining. Love to have you subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I'll see you in the next episode.